Hello, I'm Charlie Brooker and you're watching Newswipe, a programme all about what's been going on. Things like this. Afghanistan, huge surge in low-quality footage. Torture allegations, just how bad is the seating in economy these days? And victory for equality as BNP votes to admit wankers of any colour. But we start by going live to South London, where I'm expected to be speaking in a few moments. We can see the sofa there. Not much happening at present, but that's all expected to change. Me is currently positioned outside. Me, what's the latest on this? Well, Me, there really are no new facts to report as such. I'm outside the building where I'm expected to return any moment now. When that happens, I should be making my way in through that door, taking a position on the sofa and reading a short statement to camera. It's believed I left these premises sometime earlier today to visit a local shop, stock up on some semi-skimmed milk, 1 or 2 cans of a well-known Diet Cola and a chocolate bar. No word on precisely what bar we're talking about, but clearly we're dealing with some kind of sweet tooth here. And I understand, I think I can hear Me returning. Yes, here I am approaching the door, as you can see, opening it. Having a bit of trouble there. Stepping inside. And that's me now inside the building. We'll just pass over again live to the live. No, I seem to be heading off for a piss. Me, is there anything you can tell me about the sofa we're seeing now? Well, the sofa, I mean, it's quite familiar to some of your viewers. It's got a kind of burgundy hue. It's understood it actually came with the flat, which was fully furnished when that was purchased. We'll have to cut you off there, I'm afraid. Me appears to have come back, and so let's... I don't know about you, but the news' obsession with live broadcasting gets right on my boober jugs. Bloody Progress is to blame. It's made it possible for the news to broadcast live from anywhere in the world, usually for no good reason.
David Cameron is going to make a speech in this academy in South London.
Sometimes it excitedly cuts live to a location where someone's about to make a statement, albeit not quite yet. Sometimes it shows you eerie, unpopulated chambers or rooms full of people ambiently milling around, which make you start to feel like a ghost if you stare for too long. Sometimes it cuts from one load of boring live nothing to another load of boring live nothing, just to keep you up to date with all the boring live nothing in the world. Sometimes it goes into vulture mode, cutting live in the hope of spotting something awful happening, like a collapsing bridge.
It's not obvious, of course, looking at it, but it is in a very dangerous state and could collapse at any time, although having said that, we've been saying that for a while.
And when it comes to rubbernecking, sometimes the news just doesn't know when to stop. For instance, last week, Sky's obsession with on-the-spot tragedy saw it broadcasting live footage of Alexander McQueen's body being taken into a waiting ambulance, images we've chosen to censor.
We just want to pause for a moment as we look at the pictures of Alexander McQueen's body being removed from his flat. We'll pause for a moment.
Having thus shown due respect for the dead, they then hovered over his body like a vulture as it was driven through the street, because, you know, it was important to keep their viewers informed. When an actual reporter bothers to show up, they're often standing somewhere which shut up shop hours ago, or they're too far from a computer to be much use.
Everybody, of course, pouring through this report right now. We are able to do that and you're not. So let me just give you some headlines that we're getting.
Often they patronise you by standing near something vaguely linked to the story, which is why a correspondent doing the Toyota report has to lurk outside a garage with the logo in the background in the middle of the night. But apart from making their job harder, it also makes them just look like losers. Look at these transient outsider nomads literally conducting meaningless lives. There's just no dignity to it. It turns being a journalist into the physical equivalent of standing on a busy high street advertising a golf sale. I mean, why in dog's dick should we trust the analysis of someone who doesn't have the wherewithal to head indoors when it rains? Sometimes I wouldn't be surprised if they suddenly cut to someone standing in outer Mongolia.
And we can now go live to Peter there in Mongolia. Peter, have you felt cold like this before?
Worst of all, when rubbish weather itself becomes the story, reporters feel some psychotic urge to remain standing outside, broadcasting their dramatic images way beyond the point where any sane person would get the flippin' sherbet out of there.
Jesus! Michelle, we're gonna go to a break and let you try to maybe walk a little bit closer to the camera.
And quite apart from any of those issues, can you imagine the carbon footprint this leaves behind? Consider the fuel burnt getting there, the lighting, the hot air pumped into the atmosphere by their stupid mouths. Sometimes I think the news might be single-handedly trying to bring about an environmental catastrophe, which it will then report on. Mind you, on the bright side, if the sea levels do rise, at least there'll be fewer patches of land for them to stand around on blabbing down the lens. And now we head back live to the studio. Well, now it's time for our new Have Your Say section, in which you don't have your say. Instead, embittered comic Doug Stanhope does.
I'm Doug Stanhope, and that's why I drink. Hey, what's your opinion about the news of the day? You think no one cares? They actually don't. But every day on CNN, Jack Cafferty pretends to care about what you think. Jack Cafferty's an ex-alcoholic windbag on CNN. He's like a defeated, low-rent Howard Beale that comes on every day with very strong, surly opinions about whatever the subject of the day is.
Well, why don't they renegotiate these damn trade agreements that send all these jobs to places like India and China and Mexico? Why don't they start there?
But his opinion isn't quite enough. He wants your opinion as well. Please log on to CNN.com and tell Jack how you feel about this.
Let's give those folks in Washington the benefit of our collective wisdom.
Because they want you to believe that your opinion matters. Makes you feel good. Yeah, I'm going to tell them what I think.
Ralph writes from Yakima, Washington.
And Jack will read the emails at the end of the show. They're always very, very insightful. Hey, Jack, I got a question. If we're going to bail out all these Washington fat cats, where's my bailout? They give you opinion polls about subjects you couldn't possibly have any basis to make an opinion. What's the likelihood of another terrorist attack now that Obama's in office? They'll put up big pie charts that say, ooh, 67% say it's very likely, and 30% say it's highly unlikely. 3% don't know. The big pie charts with 3% don't know. No, you all don't fucking know. That should be a giant pizza pie of I have no earthly idea. What that shows you is 97% of Americans will give you a strong opinion even though they have no fucking clue whatsoever about the subject. Everyone is so desperate to not only have an opinion but make that opinion heard and think that opinion counts. You Twitter and you MySpace and you Facebook your stupid opinions and you spout off to your coworker. You know what I think? I think it's the liberals that are ruining everything. And that's not enough. So you go to town hall meetings and you yell and scream. They bang the gavel trying to get you to shut up. And that's still not enough, so you go home and then you write blogs in the middle of the night because you haven't had your opinion heard enough. You probably blog about this segment. Doug Stanhope ruined Newswipe. Why is that fat-headed alcoholic on this show? Get rid of him. And you know what? There's a good chance I might stumble across that blog one day when I'm sitting alone in some hotel room and I'm in the middle of the night and I'm drinking vodka and yogurt because I drank all the mixers out of the mini bar and the yogurt's all I have left from breakfast when I thought I could eat solid food, but I was wrong. And I'm going to find the blog where you say I suck, and it'll hurt my feelings. So let me circumvent your blog before you even write it by answering in kind, go fuck yourself. I don't care what your opinion is. Jack Cafferty pretends to care. Go log on to his stupid show.
I hate sport. If you ask me, sport belongs in a news bulletin about as much as a mummified cat's head belongs in a Caesar salad. So imagine my confused horror when quite recently a sports story without any sport in it made it into the news. The saga began when England captain John Terry, this bloke apparently, allegedly cheated on his wife with a lingerie model who used to go out with one of his teammates. The News of the World were about to print these allegations when Terry's lawyers took out a super injunction. Super injunctions are interesting legal weapons really. They don't just gag the press, they gag them from mentioning the existence of the gag. In other words, you know how people used to say, I could tell you but then I'd have to kill you? Well, these days they just kill you. Anyway, a judge lifted the super gag, much to the delight of the triumphant News of the World lawyer with a logo stuck to his head, who turned up all over the shop to cry about what a victory for free speech this was.
Too often in these cases, the public's right to know is ignored in preference to the so-called protection of incredibly wealthy and pampered footballers and other celebrities.
Yeah, you know, they hate the wealthy and pampered at News International because they're owned by one of the poorest and least indulged billionaires on the planet. Now everyone was free to gab about it, the story got more traction than it deserved, making the leap to Stern TV news bulletins in the process.
Will Terry's secret affect his England captaincy? A gagging order is lifted about his private life.
But the question of whether Terry would remain captain wasn't going to be answered for a week. He wasn't talking, his wife was away, his teammates were making no comment, the model was weighing up her options, and the England manager was overseas recovering from a knee op. Nothing was happening. So in order to justify its presence in the bulletin, the news had to play keepy-uppy with the story.
One way to keep the ball in the air is to repeatedly report on the fact that you're repeatedly reporting on it. That way you can refer to mounting pressure.
Pressure is mounting on the England captain John Terry.
Pressure on John Terry didn't show on the pitch.
There's no let-up in the pressure on John Terry this morning.
Or you can say there are growing calls for him to resign.
There have been growing calls for him to resign.
There are growing calls for John Terry to be sacked.
The England captain faces growing calls to quit.
Combine the mounting pressure with the growing calls and you've got yourself a media whirlwind, which you can also refer to.
There is no easing of the media whirlwind swirling around John Terry today.
To ensure the pressure kept up, the reporters got their stalking gear on and headed out to stand around entertainingly looking for Terry.
Any sign of John Terry there today?
Yes, in the past half hour I've just seen John Terry.
Yes, there he was, through the trees, and as the cameras peered at him through the branches like a serial killer, it was easy to see where all this pressure we'd heard about was coming from.
Because by now his every move was under surveillance, and wherever Terry went he walked headlong into a storm.
Stepping off the team bus and into a media storm. Stepping onto the pitch and into a storm of controversy.
With its quarry thus encircled by a zillion watchful eyes, the news waited for something to give. Meanwhile, the tabloids were busy smearing their pages with all the shit they could find. A stealthy PR war had broken out, which meant scintillating sawaway snaps of Tony Terry strategically appeared alongside aspersions about Vanessa Perencel's morals on one side, while Max Clifford paraded his latest catch on the other, in scenes which closely resembled an age-gap romantic subplot from a rubbish soap opera he was directing.
Of course, in any soap, you sometimes have to do more than one take, which Max thoughtfully allowed ITN to do in this revealing clip.
Hold on, you don't have to break your neck something. If you want to go back, we'll start again from here if you want.
And while Max got all Albert square on us, we were treated to plenty of displays of expert dribbling. We heard sexy football experts dribbling about how it would affect morale.
What will be the impact in the dressing room?
Bearded talk show ball bags dribbling about it in radio studios.
What he does in his private life is nobody's business whatsoever.
It is!
Erudite broadsheet pundits dribbling about it on Newsnight.
He's a kind of snorting priapic bull. That's who you want, leading the men into battle.
And silly callers to the right stuff dribbling about whether they'd rather marry Terry or Tiger Woods.
Helen on line 2.
Helen, good morning.
Good morning.
Tiger or Terry?
I'd go for a tiger.
But perhaps the finest displays of dribbling of all were performed by extreme self-caricature wag Lizzie Cundy, who was suddenly omnipresent.
As a wag, Lizzie Cundy knows how tough life can be in the spotlight.
She spilled her brains on the 5 News sofa.
No one knows more than John Terry today how foolish he's been.
Yeah, the real tragedy is he's also too foolish to appreciate what insight his own foolishness gives him.
She appeared on family-friendly GMTV to hear Ben Shepherd say players shouldn't let an erection cloud their judgment.
Even if these girls are throwing themselves at the footballers, no matter how hard it is, they should be able to say no.
She even took part in synchronised dribbling as Sky News brought blokes and birds together for a polarising debate about it all, in which a blokey bloke bloked on about how it broke the sacred credo of bloke.
If you apply bloke rules that, you know, we talk about down the pub, you know, over a beer, people will say he's completely out of order.
Yeah, completely out of order over your pint of tits. Down your bloke pub.
Let's be honest, if John Terry scores the winning goal in the World Cup, you know, people are going to forget about this.
Yes, of course, if Terry scores the winning goal in the World Cup, people will indeed forget about this, but should he be playing as captain?
In The Sun, Ian Wright suggested the players should hold a ballot, a scenario illustrated with a startlingly realistic image of Wayne Rooney at the ballot box, casting what was either a very vague vote or possibly his signature. Meanwhile, according to every sanctimonious titamaboob in Pressville, John Terry should definitely go, although most punters quizzed by Sky didn't seem quite as judgmental as the journalists.